Hey everybody, it's time to pull up a chair, fasten your seatbelt, and get ready for this episode to take off. I'm your host, Marifina, and this is a Take Your Seat podcast where women's stories spark possibility. Today we're sitting down with Michelle Delves, a previous analytics engineer, now AI ops engineer at Air New Zealand, a classically trained vocalist musician, and someone deeply involved in women in tech and well-being initiatives. In this episode, we're diving into the conversation of learning, discipline, and how different parts of her life inform the way she shows up at work, in music, and in community. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Now, before we get any deeper into this conversation, I just want to ground us. Obviously, previous role, analytics engineer at Air New Zealand. What did that entail? And for someone who isn't into technology, who's not an engineer, let's say, how would you explain your job to them?
Right. So I would say analytics engineering in a nutshell is grabbing data from one place, making it all beautiful so other people can end up creating visualizations so stakeholders can make decisions.
What is the difference between your past role and your current role now, which I understand is new?
Yes, very, very new, as in last Monday new. Yeah, so it's going to be very, very interesting, very, very different from what I'm currently doing. So previously, it was all about, creating those data models. Other people can create visualizations and stakeholders can kind of make informed decisions, right? But then this one is, how do we actually enable all of that to happen? How do we end up building pipelines and scaling stuff up so we can end up adding a layer of AI onto a lot of those practices and a lot of those platforms? So lots of data platform infrastructure, stuff in the cloud.
From what I've, heard about your role, I feel like a common skill that you would use is adaptability. Is that right?
100%. I did anxiety at uni, so the whole adaptability, 100%, because nothing I ended up studying is what I actually do now. Yeah, so
That's
lots of
interesting.
work though, because I think a lot of more traditional specializations, like civil, you end up kind of going into very civil fields, and there's a kind of formula that you end up following. Same with like software or even mechanical. But with anxiety, I think because it's so incredibly broad, it really is what you kind of make of it. And so I ended up going to like an Engine 115 talk.
Yes, I am aware of that one. Unfortunately, did not attend that lecture because it was like really close to exam week, but
That's okay.
I know about
I
this.
forgive you. One of the things he actually asked me to talk about was, where does anxiety actually take you? So I did a little bit of, groundwork and see where anxiety has ended up taking my cohort. And it's like everywhere. Like we have people in trading, we have people in project management, we have people in kind of, like data science roles.
There's data everywhere. That's why, right? Data everywhere. And that's so cool. You can get into any industry that you like.
Yeah, it's quite hard, to be honest, because I feel like people really need to take a chance on you, low-key, because like you said, it's not really as much as, A maps directly into B within an organization. But from what I've seen, like if employers do, they're normally very, very happy because we're mostly like major tryhards.
That's so awesome. And I'd love to hear about what your job entails. Let's get deeper into that conversation, right? So I know you're not from New Zealand originally and you're not born here. And that's an interesting thing to talk about, right? Cultural identity. So before your career, let's talk about your roots, your family and your cultural environment. How did your cultural environment and the way you were brought up kind of influence who you were becoming?
Yeah. So you mentioned, what kind of skills I kind of need to get into this job and everything I've kind of experienced, right? And I think one of the main things is, I'm a fourth world culture kid. So my mom's Taiwanese. And then I was born and raised in the Middle East till I was 16 and then moved
So
over.
interesting. Such an interesting background, but I can see how that would be so confusing for a person. My parents immigrated here with me when I was 10 years old. There was a lot of cultural differences between where I was born and where I am now. So, and I'm full Filipino, but you're half Asian, half Caucasian, but you were brought up in the Middle East. So I feel like you've experienced 4 different cultures because, you're in New Zealand. That's so interesting. What perspectives do you think or values do you carry from that upbringing now into today?
Yeah, so I think it's like both a blessing and a curse because it means that you get to explore and experience so many different things, right? Like
I bet.
I miss the Middle Eastern food. I don't know, it was like major culture shock, I think, coming over here
Yes.
because, you start off with, desert, but also crazy kind of infrastructure, tallest building in the world, so
Mm,
many things, the malls are open late. And then you come here and it's like, malls
can
close
relate
at
to that.
5, and there's just cones everywhere and sheep
Yeah.
and yeah,
Quiet, quiet,
all
quiet,
love.
slow
Yeah.
living New
Mhm,
Zealand.
mhm. But
There's definitely beauty in here. I would definitely want to settle down here when I'm older, but yeah, that can
yeah.
feel like a big culture shock from someone coming from a
Mhm.
city. Like, which country from the Middle East did you come from?
I came from Sharjah, so just on the border between Sharjah and Dubai.
Cool. See,
Yeah.
I feel like those countries in the Middle East definitely a bit more like high scale, bigger scale in terms of not just infrastructure, but I feel like the way people dream.
I would say that, I've had so many like identity, like, oh, what's going on? But it's really amazing because it means you can kind of relate to so many different people and you can kind of find a part of yourself that helps you kind of get along with everyone. And so,
Mm,
for me, it's like, okay, if someone's Muslim, I've had to go through Ramadan, I understand
mm,
like kind of the culture of what they're going through.
yeah.
It's, on the Asian side, I'm like, 我也会讲中文, like,
You
surprise.
speak Mandarin. That's
Yeah,
so cool. That's
exactly.
so cool.
And yeah, I don't know. I think it really gives you like so much perspective because you've been able to see more than just the bubble you're kind of in. And yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
for
I'm
sure,
like
for
so
sure.
grateful. I'm so grateful for all the experiences and all the people and
Yeah,
everything that kind of, shaped me to become who I am. And even if it seems like it's a curse, like that is a part of who you are. And whatever
exactly.
good or bad stuff you've gone through, as long as you kind of, I guess, put a positive spin on it and try to do the
Mm,
best you can with what you are and what you're made of, then yeah,
builds your character and thickens the plot, doesn't it? Doesn't
exactly.
it?
It's just character development.
It's for the plot, right? But yeah, that's so real. And I love how you talked about that with transparency and that it was both a blessing and a curse. And
Mm.
did you go through like stereotypical Asian expectations and,
Mhm.
like in terms of academics and in terms of playing your instrument? Because I know as well that you're a musician. Did that come from, the
Yeah,
expectations of a certain someone in the family?
actually a really funny question. Because I think initially, potentially, like I don't really remember because I started piano when I was like 5.5. And then
As usual.
and it was actually me. I remember going, Mom, I want to learn singing and I want to learn the violin. And she was like,
It's
you
cute.
sure? And I was like, I just want to do it. Like, please let me. And she didn't
She
let
must have
me.
been really proud. No?
But she didn't let me do it until I was like 10 or
Really?
11 because she was like, you need to master the first instrument first. And I was like, you know what? I appreciate that. Get
Piano.
focused. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, she was so
Right.
supportive and she was so lovely. And yeah, I'm just really blessed to have a really supportive, loving family. Like
Mm,
you were asking about the
yeah.
whole Asian versus white, right? And I think in
Mm,
some sentences, like where my mom was super tiger mom kind of,
yeah.
she was also a little bit whitewashed. Don't tell her I tell I
Mm. A little bit more lax, maybe?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Influence from dad?
'Cause I think it was like, when you go to uni, the stereotypical Asian plot is, you gotta become a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer, right? But my mom was like,
Exactly.
"Just kinda do whatever you want to do, whatever you need to
Yeah,
do." And
I
so
relate
I
to
was, like,
this.
thinking about becoming, like, a music teacher. Like, I was like, "Okay, maybe I'll do, like, a conjoint with science or physics or, like, maths."
Yeah.
Like, she's, like, genuinely supporting whatever I want to do,
So
including
good.
was
That is
really,
so
really
important, so valuable, and I love that for you. And
Mhm.
obviously, those early experiences also shaped your perspective, as you went into university. And, your parents or your family, your background would have certain expectations imposed on you, but I feel like those also transfer on yourself in the way you self-impose your
Mhm.
expectations. And being your cohort's valedictorian when you graduated, I'm sure your path came with a lot of pressure. Is that right? Is
Yeah,
that right?
absolutely. I was just gonna say that, like, honestly, I think when I passed maybe year 11, and I think my mom saw that, I was taking everything so seriously, like, no amount of pressure that she could put on me would be more than I put on myself. Like, straight up, straight up, straight up. And
Okay.
it's like, from then onwards, she was just like, "You know what? I'm just gonna let you cook. Just you go do you, boo."
This is so I resonate with this so much, and I'm not even joking with you because I mean, I moved here when I was 10, right? And when I was in the Philippines, I was in a private school. My parents got me a private
Mhm.
tutor. I was studying, but I was like what, like 8, and I didn't really know what was going on. I was just doing what my parents told me, like study, study, study. But when that all went away, when I moved here, I carried that with me. That
Yes.
same habit. I would study so much. I feel like it doesn't leave you. Where do you think the pressure came from on your side? Do you think all yourself after a certain point?
That's a great question. Yeah, what you said, like, resonated. I think for, like, me, it was a bit of, like, a mindset shift because I was like, "Okay, you know what?
Mm,
I'm uprooting my entire life." I was the same as you, I came from a
yeah.
private school, went to a public school, and I was just like, "Oh my god, like,
Mm.
everything is, like, self-taught right now. The support system is so
Yeah,
different."
exactly, exactly. No private tutor for me.
Yeah, no, no. And it was like, "Oh, wow." I don't know, like, now it's like, your future is what you make of it, right? And so you can
Yeah, exactly.
party, you can go do all that stuff, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like, you have to face the consequences of that. And so for me, it's always been like, okay, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And my big mentality has
Mm.
been, I do not want what
Clock
ifs.
that.
Exactly. I was like, I do not want what ifs. I'm going to like try my best, give it 100%, 110% of effort.
Mm.
And then I know I'm never going to look back at anything with regret saying, oh, I did that. Yeah.
That is a powerful outlook because that is so true. How are you gonna get something if you don't ask, right?
Exactly. Like the worst thing that's going to happen is someone's going to tell you no.
Exactly. And I feel like we hear this so many times, and I don't know, like, I feel like I've said this before, the most cliche lessons are usually the most powerful ones, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I feel like because you're a high achiever and you know what you want for yourself. I heard that you've got quite high standards for yourself. Is there ever a point where you felt like that was really heavy on you, or did you ever feel like what was the negative sides of having that kind of pressure? Did it ever come to you that way?
Yeah, 100%. I've always been a tryhard. I always used to throw myself into, the sports, the music, the culture, everything. And like at a certain
Embrace it. I
point,
love it.
yeah. But then at a certain point, it's like, oh my God, like when do I get free time? Like this is really hard. And
Exactly.
especially when you're doing like leadership roles, which a lot of the time I ended up doing, it's like, oh, who actually takes care of the person taking care of everyone else? And I think
Mm,
that's really
mm.
hard sometimes because you're giving your all to something. And especially when you don't get that, immediate dopamine hit, which, makes you feel good. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, it can be really hard being stuck in the trenches. But at the end of the day, I'm always like, you know what?
Exactly.
Whatever experience I've experienced, whatever I'm doing, a lot of what fuels me is, okay, whatever bad thing that happened, it's fine because as long as I'm doing something to make it better for the next person so they don't have to go through it, then, that's all I can really do. That's
Mm.
for me. That's what kind of, fuels me during those probably not so bright times.
Yeah, so would you say, like, looking back now at those experiences, you don't regret any of that, and you feel content that you were a try hard, as you say, which I
Absolutely.
love, by the way. I feel like all engineers are tryhards.
I think so too. I think so. Type A and side tryhards are like a different breed.
Yeah. No, I love that. So just looking back at that, like the way you coped was basically looking into what you could make better for the future for someone else, right?
Yeah.
And just gaining those experiences, which I love so much. So do you think for someone who feels like they're also doing, who's also high achieving, they're let's say, what is it? Paper perfect? I would say picture perfect, but I feel like it's a CV, right? So paper perfect, and someone was looking at them and they're doing well, but quietly, there's a lot of comparison behind the scenes, pressures, expectations. What would you want them to know?
I think comparison is like, oh, it's as
Yeah.
much, okay, double-edged sword, honestly, double-edged sword. Because one, it could end up fueling you if you go, damn, like that
Mhm.
person's doing
Mhm.
that. I could also do that. That's going
Mhm.
to motivate me. But it can also be like,
Mm.
my God, that person's doing that. Like, oh, I could never.
Perspective.
Exactly, 100%. And so I think it's like a bit of like a mindset shift, right? Because there's always going to
Yeah,
be someone
100%.
taller, smarter, more amazing than
Mm.
but the reality is, as long as you're like kind of content with everything that you've kind of achieved yourself, and but you know that you've truly tried the best you can, like that's the most important thing, right? And like even in uni, I remember, I was never the scholar, student, top marks, whatever person, but I tried really, really hard. And I was like,
Mm.
it's all like perspective because to me, teaching music, doing music stuff or taking part in these extracurriculars that, make me and fulfilled and fill my cup, like that's really important
Yeah.
to me. And I would never be the person that would study a million hours and, really
Mm,
aim for 100%, right? But I'm like, in perspective, I'm doing all of these things that are also making a really positive change.
yeah.
So it's okay if I'm not exactly that person because I know that I am also doing all of these things that actually,
Yeah.
boost me up in other ways.
Make you you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And this is something this is not new to me. I've heard this from previous guests, and I'm sure listeners have also heard this from previous guests. And I feel like we should be realizing the impact of having passions beyond university. And that's so cool because engineering is such an intense degree. So, and you never dropped music. Why do you think that is? There were plenty of reasons to focus on engineering, right? Like there are plenty of reasons to just focus on engineering. Why did music kind of stay like a non-negotiable for you?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like, how I was talking about the whole ethnicity and identities there. I think a really big thing for me was I'm not just the STEM girly, I'm also a really creative girly. And that's a
Mm,
multiple kind of identity that I, live within as well. And so for me, it was like, okay, yes, I might be crazy working 2 days a week teaching music part time with a bunch of little 8-year-olds screaming. But like that makes me really fulfilled because I know that, I'm a good teacher. I'm a great teacher. Give myself
I bet.
and I know I can make like a meaningful difference to these kids. And, it makes me
Yeah.
really happy seeing someone go from, not even being able to tell me where middle C is to being able to play Jingle Bells at the end of the year. And it's like, oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah, that is really cute. That is so nice.
Yeah.
And as someone who doesn't know how to play an instrument, I am amazed at like the level of finesse when people play like guitar or whatever. Like it just, oh my goodness. By the way, what instruments do you play?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're also a vocalist, so
Yes,
that's
yes, yes. So
cool.
there's I don't know if you've heard of ABRSM, but it's the Associated Board for the Royal School of Music. So there's kind of two different music boards. So there's Trinity and there's ABRSM. I equate it to Cambridge and NCA. So ABRSM is like the Cambridge and then Trinity is like the NCA. And so
See,
I ended up doing my ABRSM exams all the way up to diploma. So you have grades 1 to 8 and then diploma is kind of like your entry kind of
I've heard
senior
this
level.
before.
Yeah. So I
Yes.
did my vocal performance and my piano performance in that. And then I did grade 8 violin. And so I am a little bit insane because the average person probably only does one and up to grade 8. But I was like, not.
High achieving in a lot of areas and still feel happy about what they're doing. And I feel like that credits to a lot to you doing what you like and what you love,
Mm.
right?
I do want to add one little thing though, which is I have had to come to peace with something relatively recently,
Mm,
which is, you were talking
yes.
about as you're high achieving, how do you kind of put up with that pressure? And for me, I think
Mhm.
because I'm in so many of these different like bubbles, right? I will never become absolutely amazing in one. And that's really hard and
Yes.
it's like I feel like my baseline is like pretty high, but it's never going to be to the extent of, a professional singer who is studying music for their degree. Or it's never going to be a really amazing AI engineer whose only focus is, mastering that craft. And I'm like, you know what? I have to come to peace with that. But also, I can't imagine
Mm,
myself singularly focusing on only one of those aspects because all of these aspects is what makes me me. So
yeah,
any of the other potential jack of all
exactly.
trades, master of none, it's okay. Just focus on yourself.
But still better than a master of one. It's amazing to be able to hold so many facets of your life all together. And I think that's a different type of skill to have, right? Back when you were in university and you're doing engineering, did anyone ever question why you were still doing music? And when, obviously engineering is so technical and so I would say difficult, but has anyone ever questioned why do you take music? Why?
Yeah, great question. I think initially, yes. And then I think people just kind of accepted that was kind of a thing. That was just kind of me because I had a separate Instagram account for my music. I was,
Oh, I
vocal
love that.
director of engineering review. I was, still
Yes.
kind of going and doing a lot of these creative things. And I think people pretty quickly realized, oh wow, she's a little bit crazy, but you know what? We support her for that. And in fact, it probably made me a lot more interesting than the average person because it was like, oh,
100%. 100%.
female and creative. Like, what's happening right now?
No, yeah, you've built like a career, a technical career and a creative life all at the same time. It's not a common thing, right? And
Mm,
and I think that's so cool, especially because music and engineering, like you wouldn't see them paired as often. And I feel like it takes a lot of passion to do so. And I love that. I love that so much. Along the way as well, you've also taken initiatives that matter, like from Women in Digital Network, Women in Tech, right? To Project Wellbeing, all the way back in university, and also Review. Why do you get involved in these advocacies, and why does it matter to you to talk about them and just be involved in them?
Great question. So I'll be honest, when I was doing first year engineering, I was also in like peak COVID time. So my main focus was, oh my God,
Must have
I need to do
sucked.
really well in part one because I need to have my pick of which specialization I want to do. And so I quite literally
Relate
threw
to that.
myself into all of the studies, all of the trying to get the best grades. And I did really, really well. But I was also really, really sad because I was getting absolutely no fulfillment of any of the creative stuff. Because, I was still teaching, but I was like, I'm not performing, I'm not collaborating with other people, I'm not actually filling my cup with that advocacy and all of that stuff. And so it was actually in part 2 that one of the friends I made in my Engine 1 group assignment, she was like, oh, have you heard of this club?
What club was that?
So it was Project Wellbeing, actually. And so
Yes.
that was kind of like the first little, oh, wow, like, that's a thing. I think it was part 2 or part 3. I'm pretty sure it was part 2. You know what? We can check on the LinkedIn for that. Pretty sure it was part 2. Anyway, she goes, oh, we're standing up this new club and, would you be keen to be part of it? I'm like, don't know if I have time. And she's like, Michelle.
So did it start during that year?
Yeah,
I think it started? Wow,
yes,
that's
really
so cool. Because
really
I've heard about, I know what Project Wellbeing is. It's been like, it's been told to us, it's been announced. I know what it is. And that's so cool how it started with your year. So
Yeah.
how did that? What was the story behind that?
I think just maybe like a semester before I ended up joining the committee. So I joined as, I think it was like digital operations or something. And I joined the committee and then we went into, I think, lockdown. And same thing kind of happened with engineering review as well. So, we were ready to go to show week and I was like, it's like lockdown. But
That's
it was
sad.
I know. But yeah, it was really good. I really loved Project Wellbeing because, everyone was kind of down and it was like, oh, how can we actually still kind of deliver the message? And one of my close friends that I still talk today, she is a really amazing artist. And so I ended up writing like a little jingle with my ukulele and she ended up animating it. And I think you can still find it on the page now, but it was like a little like pick me up for like the exam grind of like a little song, basically trying to motivate.
I love those.
Little snack and nap. And so that was really, really lovely. And I was like, oh, it makes me so happy that I can kind of, put the creative stuff into advocacy for well-being and all that stuff. And then it also ties into helping people directly in engineering who probably need it the most. It's really
that must have been impactful for especially because COVID would have been such a depressing time, especially since you're in university, it's supposed to be like the best times of your life.
Exactly. What parties? But it was really nice. And I think I ended up staying there for 2 or 3 years. And in my final year, I ended up taking president.
Yeah, I saw. So cool. Yeah, so that became like your creative outlet. COVID, for example, but also throughout the years as you graduated, right?
Yeah, one of them.
That's amazing. And you were doubting that in the beginning too. I don't know if I have time.
I know. But I was like, you know what? If you care about it enough, you'll sacrifice and find the time. Like,
you make the time, right?
Yep. Yes.
So you were president. So you were into, like, I think you said that you were also into leadership before and you always went for leadership positions. What lessons have you learned about leaderships or like your influence on people?
I have discovered that it really is like what you make it. At the end of the day, everyone always has their own, specific little things that they're really passionate about. And I think the key and the goal is to try and tap into what genuinely makes people tick. And once you kind of figure out what makes people tick and what makes them fulfilled, how that kind of aligns to the goal you're trying to achieve for like the wider club. And so there are people that, I guess really enjoyed playing with spreadsheets and,
strengths, people's strengths.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh, you're perfect to, give a great sales pitch for treasury and all that stuff. You'd be great as a budget. Or it's like people who really loved, art and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, we could actually like really cute little comics that, might help pick people up that can have little themes.
Leadership with people's strengths is that makes sense, right? But I feel like it's not applied so often.
Yeah, so I think I've discovered a recurring theme in my life, which is I just won't give up. and blessing or curse.
That's beautiful.
Blessing or a curse. It's like next level resilience and patience. Because I think with like so many of the clubs that I've ended up doing, including like project wellbeing or even like engineering review, a lot of the time it's like people don't know what you can kind of achieve until you show them. And so especially with like a lot of new initiatives and, you know, I guess with like the introduction of AI and everything, and it's like, oh, how do we actually pivot to make it more relevant? How do we actually, you know, help support people and all that? So at least through like Women in Digital, I'm very young. I just finished the grad program. Something I've noticed is, you know, especially with, I think, big organizations, there is such like a mismatch between people that might have like a lot of digital knowledge and people who might not have. And, you know, trying to bridge that gap and make everyone feel supported and empowered so they can, you know, kind of do their digital journey whichever way they want.
Something I've never thought of, actually. That's interesting.
Yeah. And it's like the squad that I'm working in right now, like there's some subject matter experts that are on the engineering side. So they have amazing knowledge on all the aircrafts and the engines and how everything ties in together. But they might not necessarily know all of the technical lingo when I don't say it in layman's terms.
Yeah.
So it's all about like, how do you end up empowering them and helping them feel supported? And I think a big thing that helps that is, you know, inviting them to these kind of networking events through this Women in Digital network and, you know, kind of giving them this space so they can go, okay, you know what? I know someone that can maybe mentor me or someone who can kind of look after me or other people that I can turn to if I have a question. And so like, I think a big part of what I've been trying to do is, okay, give them a space that, you know, in general, people feel supported and empowered to, you know, kind of do what they need to do, but also go ahead and, you know, do workshops and stuff that can help them with potentially advocating more for themselves, you know, have more confidence, asking and, you know, applying to things that they might not think that they are well enough for, but
I feel like it's not just the workshops bit as well. I feel like it's also a safe space to make mistakes, because I feel like as a woman, I've heard and I've realized it's a bit more daunting to make mistakes because you're in such a male dominated space that you feel like you making mistakes is a shame on a woman or something, but
no,
it's
you're
not, right? So
right.
having this space is so important. It's just like Women in Engineering Network when in university, and I love how you carried that. Did you? Is that like why you were involved in Women in Digital? Is because it's something that you wanted to carry through from uni?
Yeah. I think I didn't actually have that much time to do WEN stuff because I was doing engineering review and project wellbeing already, but I was like, WEN is in such safe hands. Like the team is so like several of them are my friends. But then when I joined Air New Zealand, I was like, oh wow, they have like employee networks as well. And I was like, oh, how do I get involved? You know, it's
So
kind of like
cool.
you don't know what you don't know kind of vibe. And then my manager at the time, he was really, really lovely because he remembered when I first joined and was like, you know, he knew I did all these extracurriculars and that I was really keen to get on board. But, you know, until someone steps down, there's not really an opening to go do that. And so
Right.
opening, he like emailed me. He was like, Michelle, would you be keen for this? And I was like, he remembered and he thought of me. You know, and it's me. Oh, I'm so flattered.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rest is history. And it's just really amazing, I think, when you end up being surrounded by people that are genuinely so passionate about the same thing. And I think especially in like a workforce where a lot of the time, you know, this might be coming out of your own time and it takes a lot of effort to do more than the bare minimum.
Exactly. This is like it. I feel like a lot of these initiatives, you do it because you want to and you care.
Yes.
And I love that so much. You compensated not being part of WIN in university by doing Women in Digital, right?
I like to think so.
What advice would you give someone who might be, you know, facing this where they realize they really care about something, stepping into their first leadership role or advocacy?
I would say have confidence in yourself and don't be too put down if people don't believe in you. It sounds like it's really negative, but I think a lot of the time, you know, you might be really putting yourself out there and, you know, trying to do everything you can. And sometimes there's going to be people that might go, really? You want to do that? Like, but it's okay because I think of it as if I have haters, then it means I'm actually doing something real. I'm doing something meaningful because like, why else would they really care if I wasn't actually doing something good, I guess, that they might not agree with? I don't know. But yeah, I think it's just...
That feels like advice for me. Like,
oh,
you know,
no. Okay, it's relatable. I don't want to be too pessimist.
No. It sounds like you're giving me advice. It sounds good. Like, you have to have confidence and you have to just keep going regardless, right?
Yeah.
But
100%.
yeah, that's
Have
valuable.
confidence. And surround yourself with people that genuinely support you, that genuinely care. Because I think I found,
Yes.
like, a lot of the time, it sounds so bad, but, people might not be that passionate and they just wanna do it for the name or the recognition of,
Yeah.
and that's really, really bad because, as I don't know, I just hate disingenuine people, not gonna lie, 'cause I want
Yeah.
I want to surround myself with people that genuinely care and are passionate and really actually want to make a positive difference.
You can tell as well, can't you?
Yeah. And so I think a
Yeah.
lot of the time, like one of the biggest difficulties I've had is working with people that aren't that. And how do you kind of have those difficult conversations and, mitigate that kind of issue? But when you are surrounded by really lovely people, you can see how well what's the thing? The
Yeah.
operation works, right? And it just makes it so much worth it. But in leadership roles, surround yourself with positive people if you can. If you can't, don't be
Mm.
afraid of saying something because at the end of the day, what's most important is whatever cause you're kind of advocating for
Yeah,
or wanting
exactly.
to work towards.
You work as a team anyway. You have the same you're supposed to have the same goal. That is the
Exactly.
idea behind that. But with everything that you've built so far, I feel like in my eyes at least, I don't know if you see this yourself, but in my eyes you're successful. Like you're very a successful engineer to me because Air New Zealand is amazing and you have not just that, not just the name of that, but because now that I've talked to you, you have just pretty much the whole time you've just lent into what you loved and that in my eyes is success.
Thank you. I really appreciate the compliment.
I feel like you're still very much growing and still very much in, like I said, in motion. You're still moving, right? So, what's a part of your life right now that feels like it's still unfolding? Something that
Mhm.
you're still figuring out or you're growing into at the moment?
Great question. I think it would be this new role that I'm gonna go do because
Exciting.
yeah, I think so much of my life has been starting from scratch in a sense, immigrating over, having to build all these identities, having to work from the ground up for the music teaching, the music career, the different
Mm,
instruments, engineering, all that shebang. And then, having to move around all these different teams and these different roles, you're basically having to start from scratch multiple times. And so what I have found, like, yet again, blessing and a curse,
yeah.
because it's amazing. Like, you don't wanna be what was it? A stagnant frog in a pond or something along the lines of that.
Yeah.
There's some saying, right? And I've never been really in that environment, which is really, really amazing because it means I know I'm always growing and changing and learning,
Yes.
but it's also really, really tiring sometimes because it takes a lot of mental
Yes.
capacity to have to start from scratch
100%.
again, learn, and, have all this mental load. So I think for me
Yeah.
this year, I'm like, okay, you know what, Michelle, we're gonna let you like relax. You're gonna
Mm-hmm.
cook, right? You're not gonna become burnt, you're gonna cook, and we're going
I
to
love that.
we're
Don't
going
burn,
to
just cook.
um, we're going to, I guess, just enjoy the process because I think I read something where it was like, if you keep rushing thinking, "Oh, I'm never good enough and I need to go reach this thing or that thing," it's like you're not actually enjoying the process of becoming. So for me, I'm just gonna, try
That's
and take
deep right there.
right.
Yes. No, yeah. No, that is so right though. Enjoy
So
the process. And like do you have something to say about like being intentional or being mindful about what you do?
100%. I actually made like a little bingo card and just something for me was like I really want to focus on like something creative or like board games or something, just hang
Mm,
out with friends more this year because I was like teaching 2 nights last year as well for like music and it was like, oh my gosh, like balancing a full-time job and trying to do all this is
yeah.
so we're gonna focus more on work-life balance and not being too hard on myself, having confidence that I deserve to be where I am because, someone's
Yeah.
in me and, yeah.
I love that. You're still facing those confronting like thoughts, right? Like there's still a lot of doubts that go through and that's so human and that's so real.
I think, like, as much as people try to say, "Oh, always have a work-life balance," it really
Mm,
does depend, like, it ebbs and flows, right? Like,
yeah,
realistically
seasons.
yes, 100%. Like, sometimes if, you're starting a new job, you're starting a new role, you really have to be careful with where you're kind of putting your time, and the reality is you're probably gonna spend a lot of it, in the zone, locking in, working on that. But then you also have to be kind to yourself and not just fully focus on that. Don't always go 110%, like, be economical with your energy and your time.
Sustainable.
Yes, yes, exactly, and I think that's something that I've had to learn because, it's not like uni where you can sleep in some days after working till 6 a.m.
Yeah.
and talk all nighter,
Yeah.
right? Like, you got to show up to work every day. And if you burn
Yeah.
yourself out on day one, like, you might not feel that immediately, but by day 5, you're like dying.
It's
I think
true.
just being kind to yourself and realizing that, okay, yes, this might be a more hectic time, so I'm not going to plan as many social hangouts, or this is going to be a more calm time, so I can do more of that, and kind of
Yeah.
focusing on how all of that goes. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I believe in that too, that the fact that aiming for balance every single day of your life is actually kind of aiming for perfection in every single day of your life, right? I feel like I always tell myself that because it is true. Sometimes you won't have this much time to spend time with your friends, but seasons do come and go. I resonate with that so much. And I feel like someone will who is listening as well. Have you ever struggled with burnout, do you reckon, throughout your years? Was there ever a point? Yeah.
Yeah. Many. I feel like I was always kind of toying the line, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that.
Especially when it's like, it's just assignment after assignment, deadline after deadline, and it's just thing after thing. But yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily a solution to it, but I think what I
Mm-mm.
found is,
100%.
sometimes you just need to take a little break, like take a little sec, do whatever makes you feel more fulfilled and better. And so for me, sometimes it's like I go sing a Broadway song, or I go sing some Wicked, like
I
that,
love that. Oh, yes.
right? I go like plonk something.
Yes.
Yeah, no, and that makes me feel recentered. That makes me feel
Yeah.
better. I don't feel as drained. Like, I'm sure every single person has their own little happy place. And so sometimes at the end of the day, it's actually better to go take a break rather than just perpetually trying to keep doing the
Yeah.
thing. Because
Exactly.
you
I
might just
feel
be
like,
banging your head against the wall, right? You need to open the door.
yeah, if your cup is empty, where are you getting anything from, right?
Exactly. And you have to be so careful if it's like you're so used to giving everything to everyone, you're not getting your cup filled, then like you're just giving more and more of yourself. And
Yeah.
you have to be really careful with that because before you know, it's like,
Yes.
actually, who's looking after the person looking after all the other people?
I feel like to be honest with yourself when
Hmm.
you're tired. Because to be honest, I feel like being compassionate to yourself and being complacent is there's a very thin line between the two of them. When you feel like you're being lazy and when you feel like you're being compassionate to yourself. How do you feel about that?
I think that's very, very real. I think something that I've like, I've always been a person who goes like, does stuff. And then
Mm.
it was like
You can
getting to
see that.
Yeah. It's getting to the point last year where I was like, oh my God, you know what? I can't actually socialize more than probably twice a week because
Mm.
realistically,
Fair.
I'm not getting enough sleep and I'm just getting more and more drained. And then I end up, needing even more me time and it just
So
stacks up,
fair.
not very productive. I'm like, you know what? It's okay to say no sometimes and it's okay to kind of protect your peace and protect your
Yeah.
capacity because
Yeah.
you're the one having to suffer with the repercussions if you don't, right? Like sleep.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that came with just your own self-reflection and own honesty about your time and your, boundaries.
Hmm.
And I feel that is such an important thing to carry with you.
Yeah, especially if you're
Hmm.
like a people pleaser. I think that's really, really like
Do you consider
I'm
yourself one
100%. Yes. Yes, I am.
still?
Yep. Yep.
Is this something you're working on or is it something you're just gonna accept?
I think it's something that it's not a bad trait, but I think I have to be selective
Mm.
about when I do.
Right.
And so
Who
that's
you
something.
like people please?
Yes, exactly. Like if I want to people please my manager, that's probably a very smart move. But if I'm going above and beyond for
Yep.
something that, doesn't really serve me, it's like realistically, you have to kind of
Mm.
be careful with your capacity and kind of putting that. Yeah.
I feel like that's a very common theme across all my guests is that they truly do lean into what they're most passionate about and they're very selective as you said
Mm,
with what they value and what they put their time into because time is gold. But
exactly.
yeah. It's so inspiring to hear you're still growing and you're being transparent about the struggles that you have and also it's a big reminder that learning is truly like never ending. But now that we're nearing the end of the episode, I want to ask you one final TYS question. And that is looking back at what you have experienced and what you've shared to us, you've shared very, very valuable insights and very good advice. What's one message or lesson that you hope someone listening today takes with them to feel more courageous in their own
Great
big,
question.
deep breath?
That's a big question. That's a big question. Ooh. Okay. I would say my anchor is if I could do it all again, I would. Would I regret anything I have or haven't done? And, whenever I'm stuck at a crossroads or I'm thinking and I'm, trying to put myself outside of my comfort zone, I think, am I going to regret it if I don't? Because I think a lot of the time people think, oh my God, it's so much effort to go and do this new thing that ends up kind of crippling them. But I think my mentality
Yeah.
is I'm going to think about how bad I would feel if I don't go and do it, because that's actually worse than how scary it would be to go try it. Yeah.
With that, we will wrap up today's conversation. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your story, your advice, and your energy with us today. It's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully I didn't yap too much.
No, you didn't. Oh my gosh, that was all and everything and more than I needed to hear. Today's episode was so fun, and I really appreciate having you on the podcast today. And I know you were like, I want to be intentional with my time. Thank you for investing your time into the podcast. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Take Your Seat podcast. I hope you're leaving this conversation empowered and reminded that a seat at the table is always waiting for you. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and don't forget to follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and when that moment comes, take your seat.